So in the last couple of days, Republicans are starting to get booed by their own constituents at town hall meetings, and it's a glorious thing to watch. It's so good to see people finally starting to wake up. I can't count the times that I get messages or comments left where people says, "Love you, Brando, but you're just beating a dead horse. You're talking to these people. You're trying to talk sense to them. They're never going to listen. They're going to hang with Donald Trump to the bitter end." And I feel you. And I do believe that there are some people who will absolutely hang with him till the bitter end. And even after it's all over, they'll find a way to blame it on all of us. And they will end up holding more resentment toward us than they ever will for Trump for playing them. But there are people starting to wake up. And I do get a lot of messages from people who says, "You know what? I didn't like you when I first stumbled across your videos. You offended me on a lot of things. I didn't agree with everything you say. I still don't agree with everything you say. But you are starting to make a whole lot of sense about Trump, and I can't believe that I fell for it." And so when I saw these clips of people booing Republicans to their faces at their own town halls, I said, this is something we've got to talk more about. So we're going to roll a couple of clips. Here's the first one.
When will you stand up to them and say that is enough?
The end result of the fraud and abuse that has been discovered already.
So that's not the only one facing a tough crowd. Let's take a look at this one.
President Trump has issued a lot of executive orders. I think by and large this is moving very quickly compared to other administrations, and I think across the board he's done some very good things. I think he's gotten rid of birthright citizenship.
Illegal as hell.
So there's a couple of things I want to talk about before we move into the next segment. There's a lot of things that I've said over the years here on the channel, and one of those things is it has to affect Republicans before they start to care. And I hate that it has to be that way, but it's just the truth. I've seen it my entire life. I have had people in my family who spoke out real strongly against Democrats, who wouldn't listen to a word me or my Democratic uncles had to say. And then when suddenly they were the ones in need, when suddenly they lost their job, when suddenly they got a form of cancer and was trying to beat it and needed health care and needed some sort of safety net to fall back on, suddenly they were starting to listen to the Democrats, and suddenly those Democrats were starting to make a whole lot more sense to them. I've seen it happen my entire life, and I knew that it would only be a matter of time before it happened with Donald Trump. People were still struggling while Joe Biden was president. I think Joe Biden did a great job. I think he brought us back from the brink of destruction with COVID. I think he moved his country forward. I think he did really well. But he wasn't a guy who was out there thumping his chest about it. I didn't need him to be, by the way. I didn't need him out there thumping his chest. But Republicans, for whatever reason, they love that kind of political theater. They want someone to tell them it's all going to be great, even if their life is miserable. And so a whole lot of people, it was really hard to get through to them and point out Joe Biden's accomplishments when they were still struggling, and Donald Trump is still over there saying, it's bad, it's only bad because he's in there, and I'll make your life great again. Another thing I'd like to point out is that the people in these clips are people middle-aged and older. You don't necessarily see a lot of young kids there in those town halls, and that's why I say we can't count on the kids to save us. I used to say that all the time. That's something I used to say, well, the kids will grow up and see through this, and I do have faith in the next generation. I do believe there are a lot of very smart and bright young voices out there. They're right here. You can find them on social media. You can find Adam Mockler. You can find Luke Beasley. Young men who are very smart, very bright, and they're influential, and they're helping kids their age see through a lot of the bullshit. But we can't just depend on the kids to save us, because people back in the 60s that was protesting way back then, they thought that the kids would save them, and we're right back in that same mess again, and probably in a bigger mess than we've ever been in before. So yeah, there were a lot of older people in these crowds, but again, I think the reason they're starting to speak up the most is because it's really starting to hit them, and they're starting to feel it. And now that they're starting to feel it, they're going to turn on their former favorite TV celebrity apprentice host. But in this next clip, now this one happened down in Georgia, and this is Rich McCormick, and he gets asked a question about tyranny, And I was not at all shocked by his response. I was actually kind of shocked by the crowd's response to him. This is really good to see.
And a man has declared himself our king. So I would like to know, rather, the people would like to know what you, congressmen, and your fellow congressmen are going to do to rein in the megalomaniac in the White House.
I'm not going to give you my best foghorn leghorn response to that. But what I was, you can go ahead and sit down. Thank you. When you talk about tyranny, when you talk about presidential power, I remember having the same discussion with Republicans when Biden was elected. The funny thing is, you're sitting here and a lot of you would probably say those January 6s who are yelling just as loud as you, who are upset just like you.
I knew he was going to give that answer. I knew he was going to go back and say something about Joe Biden, but then he had the gall to try to compare the people lifting up their voices there to the people on January 6th. And if you go over on Twitter, you will see a complete gaslighting chamber where Elon does that all day. And if anyone speaks out at any town hall, he'll share that and say, looks like an insurrection to me. And they're trying to compare those things, and they're trying to sane wash everything that happened on that day, and we're never gonna let them. January 6th was one of the darkest days in our nation's history. They went to the Capitol with the intention of overturning an election, of overthrowing a government. They actually were dumb enough to think that they could take a vacation day from work and go do that, and there would be no consequence whatsoever. And they showed up there because they bought into the lies and the bullshit that Donald Trump spread, because he was not man enough to admit, and still isn't man enough to admit, that he lost an election. These people were thugs. These people were domestic terrorists, and he gave them a pardon, and a good chunk of them's already went back to jail because they were violent people to start with. But what Donald Trump did by pardoning them is let us know exactly the kind of person that he supports. And it also sent a message to all the crazy people out there now who says, well, I can do anything I want to it. As long as I do it in Donald Trump's name, I'll get away with it. So that's the kind of tyranny we're up against now. And to compare it to Joe Biden is complete apples and oranges. They sat there forever, and they brought one impeachment hoax after another up against Joe Biden, and they could never provide one shred of evidence. They kept talking about it. They kept telling us it was there. They kept promising us we'd see it soon. They never could provide anything. Meanwhile, we had Trump on camera. We had him on camera on January 6th saying, go to the Capitol and fight like hell. We had all the months and all the tweets and all the things that he said leading up to it, and all the things they said leading up to it, and now they're trying to back out of it. I will never let those people refer to themselves as patriots. I'll never let them say that they love this country or care for this country, and I will never let them say that the government was weaponized against them. No, they broke the law. They tried to overturn an election that they lost, and Donald Trump knew they lost, and he didn't care and continued to push through. And one of the main reasons that I believe that Donald Trump pardoned those people was because he's going to need those people, and he knows he can call on them to do anything, but he better hurry because they just keep committing crimes and getting sent back to jail. But people are starting to wake up to this shit, and I hope more people do. I do believe that the work we're putting in here is worth something. I do believe that it's valuable. I do believe that we will get through to people. It may take a while. Some people may be very late to the party, but we keep talking. We keep bringing across the points every day. We keep talking about the issues at hand. We keep talking about our principles and what we stand for and what we believe in. And I think if people see that enough, they may not agree with us at first. They may find us totally offensive at first, but when it starts to affect them, when it starts to affect their family, and they realize that everything Donald Trump gave them was just a bunch of empty promises. Just like I said in the previous video, I thought for sure when he got back in, he would just say, oh, it's all great now. Y'all can go back to bed. But he can't do it. He's got to continue to run this country down. He's got to continue to talk about how bad and corrupt and evil everything is. And that keeps people coming back. But that kind of rhetoric will only go so far, because that kind of rhetoric does not help people pay their bills. That kind of rhetoric does not help people with their health care. That kind of rhetoric does not help people with their day-to-day lives and how they work, hold their job, and feed their family. It's rhetoric. That's all it is. And if that's the kind of rhetoric you want, I highly recommend the WWE. They got a pretty cool angle right now. I'm trying to figure out what The Rock is wanting Cody Rhodes to do. Why don't y'all go check out that and let them do that and let them provide that type of entertainment instead of giving cabinet spots to the Hulkster? And I'm actually surprised Hogan didn't get one. I shouldn't have said that. I probably willed it into existence. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But if you want political theater or you want some sort of entertainment where you can cheer for the bad guys and nobody's actually going to get hurt, just go watch the WWE and keep that shit out of our politics.